Okay, everybody, it's 6:30 and we are live. There's the microphones have been tweaked, so you may have to sit back a bit, otherwise it might be too loud. So we are in the council chamber in County Hall. Thank you to the officers who've managed to make it happen. Our video's working, hopefully. The sound's working. We aren't being dripped on at the moment. There is a possibility that if there's a deluge outside, we may have to relocate to committee room 1, but hopefully we'll get it over before the deluge happens. Not many of us in the room tonight, and that's expected. SLT and members know about the weather forecast, and so they are mostly attending online, but they can still participate as usual, and so that's perfectly fine. Remind you to mention your names when you talk for the first time on a particular item. Make sure your phones are off, all that usual stuff, and we'll try and get through what is rather a large agenda as quickly as we possibly can, but also with paying attention and due diligence to the papers. So item number 1, apologies. I think we're all here, so there aren't any. Item number 2, that's the minutes of the meeting held 9th of December 2025. Any members of the Cabinet got any matters of inaccuracies they wish to raise? Don't see any hands, so I'll sign those later. Item 3, declarations of interest. Jonathan Mayer will explain. There's an item on the agenda about the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan. So we have several members in the room who are also Weymouth Town Councillors, and Jonathan will explain why they don't need to declare an interest.
Thank you, Leader. Jonathan Mayer, Director of Legal and Democratic. And Leader, you're quite right. The microphones are quite a bit better, I think, now. So we've got an item on the agenda tonight following the referendum on the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan. 3 members of the Cabinet, Councillor Jill Taylor, Councillor Simon Clifford and Councillor Ryan Hope, are dual-hatted Dorset Council councillors and also members of Weymouth Town Council. Weymouth Town Council met on 20th November 2024 when the Town Council was asked to endorse the submission of the draft neighbourhood plan to Dorset Council for further consideration, an independent examination and a referendum. So I've been asked to consider whether the 3 dual-hatted councillors are somehow predetermined on the question before you tonight. My advice is that they are not. The question that was asked at the Town Council meeting was a different one than you're considering tonight. So my advice to the 3 councillors is it's perfectly appropriate for them to remain in the chamber to take part in the debate and to vote tonight. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any other declarations of interest on any of the other items? Nope, don't see any hands. So we move on to public participation. We have 2 questions from members of the public. One of them is from Mr. James Gillet or Gillett. He apparently is not in attendance. He's not online, I believe. So the question is, he will receive a response tonight or tomorrow morning, unless Councillor Andrews, it's not worth, we're not going to read it out, so Councillor Andrews will provide the answer. So the second question is from Ms. Karen Tippins, who I believe is online. Is she? She is. Okay, so Karen, do you want to read your question out?
Yep. Can you hear me? Yep. So the proposed 12% increase in Shaftesbury Town Council's preset is not being driven by unavoidable costs, but by the use of council tax to fund projects that already have allocated S106 developers' contributions and which, under proper governance, should not be impacting residents' council tax at all. The first example is the Manpits Hub. Cabinet agreed in October 2025 that this project would be subject to strict project cost controls and that early drawdown of S106 funds would be made available. Despite this, over 60,000 of council tax has already been used to fund the Manpits Hub, with only partial S106 reimbursement claimed. There is no evidence of ring-fence project accounts, no clear reconciliation between the council tax and S106 expenditure, no published cost control framework despite Cabinet's direction. The second example is Wincoln Recreational Park. Cabinet papers confirmed that there's 20,000 of S106 funding that has been agreed with Shaftesbury Town Council for this project. Despite this, the Town Council has added 160,000 of council tax to the preset for Wincoln without published project plans, delivery dates or cost breakdown. This represents council tax being used in place of developers' contributions, contrary to the purpose of S106. The third example is the youth club. There is 128,000 of Section 106 funding allocated to this. This is Little Down, Red Row. Yet the Town Council has added 5,000 of council tax for this project. Again, council tax has been used where ring-fence developer funds already exist. Also added to the Town Council preset for 26-27, those Dorset Council centric projects, which 19,000 were given to allocated to Dorset Council devolution, with no definition, scope or supporting agreement published. There's 25,000 for High Street traffic management in Shaftesbury, despite Dorset Highways saying that this survey would be undertaken by yourselves with no cost to the Town Council. Taken together, these decisions show a pattern where council tax is being used in substitute for S106 funding rather than S106 being used to reduce the pressure on residents' bills. This matters because S106 contributions are intended to be spent as a priority in towns like Shaftesbury, which have experienced rapid housing development. When substantial S106 funding is allocated and available, council preset should not be rising to fund the same infrastructure. So my question is, given the Cabinet decision of October 2025, requiring strict cost controls on Nampits Hub, and given confirmed allocation of S106 funding for Wincoln Recreational Park and the Youth Club, what actions will Dorset Council now take to ensure that the S106 funds are properly ring-fenced, transparently accounted for and used to reduce rather than increase the council tax for Shaftesbury residents? Thanks very much.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Bartlett's going to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Cabinet Member for Planning, Emergency Planning and Ward Member for Wimble Minster. Thank you for your question, Ms Tippins. Dorset Council recognises the importance of good partnership working with town and parish councils and other organisations to deliver positive outcomes for Dorset's communities. Therefore, Section 106 funding can be accessed by town and parish councils and some third-party organisations to deliver infrastructure. A protocol exists to support a review of projects and the eligibility of organisations. This process helps ensure that the transfer of contributions is transparent and fair to all. Section 106 funding is a form of developer contribution which is secured through the planning process. In some cases, single contributions are insufficient to fund major transport, education, flood or community infrastructure, and new development will only be expected to pay for its fair and reasonable share. The use of Section 106 funds does not prevent the combined use of other sources of funding, as long as the Section 106 funding is spent on the infrastructure purposes for which it was collected. When combined with other relevant contributions, government grants, regional funding or borrowing, Section 106 funds allow infrastructure to be delivered at a scale that genuinely supports growth. With regard to the setting of local town council precepts, this decision lies with the town councillors, so I can't comment on the basis for their decisions, nor how they choose to allocate resources. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett, and you'll receive that by email, I'm assuming tonight or tomorrow morning, if that's okay. We did receive a statement from a member of the public around the active travel plan. This has been circulated to all the members and is also being published online for reference. So moving on to agenda item 5, which is questions from members. There are no questions from members. Item 6, the forward plan. It's in the documents and the agenda pack. Anybody have any questions on the forward plan? There is quite a full agenda for the next meeting, which is in March, and it's slightly less afterwards. Let's take it as read. Thank you. And in which case we'll go on to the next few items, which is the main bit of the agenda. I'm going to make a statement before I move into item 7, which is one of my papers. So as we move into items 7 through to 10, we are brought right to the heart of the council plan and its 4 strategic priorities: providing affordable and high quality housing, growing our economy, supporting communities for all, and responding to the climate and nature crisis. Tonight's sequence of reports shows how our investment, our planning, and our financial choices knit together to deliver tangible progress against each of those priorities. For example, item 7, which is on the climate programme capital work streams, it demonstrates our continued leadership in responding to the climate and nature emergency. The proposals to invest £700k in additional solar PV across our estate and £1.3 million in replacing obsolete streetlights with LEDs directly accelerate our decarbonisation pathway, cutting emissions, reducing energy, and building a resilient modern public estate. These projects are not just technical upgrades, they are enablers of a more sustainable Dorset, supporting cleaner air, safer streets, and long-term savings that protect frontline services. This is climate leadership in practice. Item 8, which is the active travel infrastructure plan. This strengthens our commitment to communities for all and to creating places where people can move safely and confidently. With more than 700 kilometres of walking, wheeling and cycling corridors assessed and a priorities programme of improvements, the ATIP will open up active, healthy, low carbon travel for residents of all ages. It supports safe routes to school, improves independence for those without access to a car, and helps reduce congestion and emissions. Crucially, having this plan in place unlocks future Active Travel England funding, ensuring Dorset remains competitive when bidding for national investment. This is a shift from fragmented provision to genuine mobility partnership, giving people better access to work, learning, healthcare, and community life, tackling rural isolation, helping local businesses, and supporting a greener future through reduced car dependency. And on item 10, which is our budget and medium-term financial plan, this is a financial framework that makes all this delivery possible. Despite a very challenging national funding picture and a continued significant reliance on locally raised council tax, the proposed 26-27 budget of 482 million protects essential services, prioritises our council plan commitments, and embeds the strategic investments we have just heard about. It includes substantial transformation, £18 million in savings and efficiencies, and a responsible approach to risk and reserves. This is how we ensure financial sustainability while still making progress on housing, the economy, community resilience, and climate action. Taken together, items 7 to 10 show a council that is clear in its priorities, responsible in its decision-making, and ambitious for Dorset's future. Whether it's reducing our carbon footprint, enabling more sustainable travel, rethinking rural mobility, or safeguarding our financial stability, these papers demonstrate how we are delivering practically, transparently, and in partnership for residents and the communities we serve. So in item 7, which is my paper, climate programme for capital work streams over 500k, I'll take the paper as read. It's essentially a bringing forward of what the previous administration implemented several years ago, and it's in front of us because 2 of the items require spending over the 500k delegation. I won't say any more. It's in the paper. It's a good thing. It does progress and continue what we've been doing again with our climate programme, and also continues the work of the previous administration, for which I give them thanks. Councillor Bryan was very good in pushing this climate agenda forward. So I'll leave it there and put the recommendations as set out in the paper in front of the Cabinet. And I believe John Andrews is going to second. So Councillor Andrews, do you want to say anything?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, happy to second this, and you encapsulated all of my papers for that. But yeah, very, very happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. So we have Councillor Parry in the room and quite a few people online. Do you wish to comment then, Councillor Parry? I don't see hands up online. No. Any Cabinet members wish to comment? No. Oh, Councillor Clifford.
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. So I know that not everyone is fully bought into climate change, and I think this paper sets out what climate change can actually mean in two ways. Yes, there's the element of affecting global warming and what steps we can take, smaller they might be. But I think the other important thing is it also reduces costs. And I think that's something that we all can get behind and fully support. So I'm very happy to support this.
Thank you for your comments. As you say, the existing solar PV we have save us around about £750 million a year, I believe, in electricity costs, and also generates money because we get paid for surplus export, about another £250,000. So this paper will actually, widen and increase our solar capacity and generate us more money, and as well as saving money. In the absence of anybody else wishing to talk, and in the absence of anybody in the room wanting to talk as well, can we take the recommendations as set out in the paper as read? Does anybody disagree with recommendations? Does anybody, in which case the recommendations are passed. Thank you. So the next item is agenda item 8, active travel plan, and it's going to be introduced by Councillor John Andrews.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor John Andrews, a Cabinet Member for Police Services and Ward Member for Sherborne East. This paper, as it's set out, I won't go through it all, just to introduce it. Our active travel infrastructure plan sets out a long-term strategy to make it safer, easier, and more enjoyable for people to walk, wheel, and cycle across the council area. The plan aims to support healthier lifestyles, reduce congestion, and cut carbon emissions, and improve connections with towns and villages. I won't say any more than that, except I'll propose this paper as read.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Robinson, you go second.
Yes, Chair. Steve Robinson, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care. You stole my thunder earlier. This is not just an infrastructure paper, this is a people paper, and I'm very, very pleased and proud to support it.
Thank you. Any councillors in the room wish to comment who aren't on the Cabinet? No. Anybody online? Can't see any hands going up. Any Cabinet members want to comment on it? No. Oh, Councillor Azard, you've just jumped in. Go on.
Sorry, I was looking at the other agenda. I just wanted to make a comment about the active travel infrastructure plan, in that some of the things that are listed, unfortunately in Purbeck, one or two of things aren't listed, and I noticed that I did get a message just earlier on today, this afternoon, from Chris Peck, suggesting why on the questions that were put in by some of my colleagues about the Poole Harbour Trails and Cordite Way, and saying that some of those plans were too long in planning. But I just want to really say that we are really hot on the trail of getting some of these plans going forward about the Cordite Way to join up with Poole and Upton. I know I'm not Upton Park, but with Hamworthy, and within 10 years. So I'm hoping that we can barge in a bit later on with that. So that's one thing that was omitted. But I just wanted you to be aware that we are on the trail with that, and we hope that in the future we can add that in at some appropriate time. So I just want to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Azard. I believe I attended the opening of Cordite Way and realised how important it is to the residents there in making the leap to Hamworthy, as it were. There is a very large gap now because Network Rail took the bridge away. Wish to comment, Councillor Andrews?
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. The only comment is that Chris Peck has written a full and comprehensive answer to Councillor Azar. Yes, we're still open to ideas. We would have to find an awful lot of funding to make that gap happen, because it goes to nowhere, the Cordite Way at the moment. So yeah, we're still open, Councillor Azar. You want to come and talk to Chris Peck and myself? We'll happily have that conversation.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
I don't see any other hands up. So in the absence of any further comment to be made, the recommendations are set out in the paper. Do any members of the Cabinet disagree with the recommendations as set out? No, in which case that's approved. Thank you very much. So we're on to item 9. It's Councillor Andrews again. So this is a strategy report, transforming public and community transport.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor John Andrews, Cabinet Member of Place Services and Sherborne East. This is a very simple plan that allows us to go forward and put this strategy forward. So we're initiating the transformation of the public and community transport system to better serve rural county facing issues such as limited services, rural isolation, fragile community transport schemes, and significant funding gaps. So the proposal aims to create a modern, inclusive, flexible, and community-based aligned network. I happily move this paper and propose it.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Clifford's going to second.
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. Yes, very happy to second this. I think this sets the scene, and I think there's a detailed business plan that needs to come forward, which is where the costings and that's where the arguments will start. This is a discretionary service rather than a statutory one. Very happy to support this. I think it's, again, Councillor Andrews has shown that the government is shortchanging Dorset, and that's hugely disappointing. This is an ambitious, exciting and a challenging project. I hope it's the kind of project that will get cross-party support, because I think we all want the same thing and the right thing here, which is to help our communities with better links, better transport and better involvement. So yes, very happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. Yeah, I think we're going to have a paper coming in summer, July maybe, off the top of my head. So anybody in the room want to speak before the people online? I see some hands up online. Councillor Parry, Councillor Fry, Councillor Northam, no. Okay, people online, I can't. Belinda Borden and Beryl. So Belinda Borden first.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, very good. Thank you. I'm glad it's all so ambitious. I'm just really anxious, and I would like to know how you're going to engage with the communities. And I'm reassured by Councillor Andrews' answer to Councillor Rezard just now that you're still open to ideas. Actually, this evening, the Western Area Transport Action Group is presenting its aspirational plan, shall we say, for public transport in West Dorset. And I would be greatly reassured to know that the transport action groups, as well as local members, are going to be involved and can contribute to the plan going forwards, because as Councillor Clifford said, we all want what's best for our communities, and I admire the aspiration, but please can we all be involved and continue to bring ideas in.
Thank you, Councillor Borden. This also fits into the webinar we had yesterday about working better with our communities. I'll let Councillor Andrews carry on.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Bowden. We definitely will be consulting. We need to work up a business plan. We can't do that without the input of the towns and parish councils and the tags, etc. So consultation will be taking place once we've worked out some figures and things of what we want. So we'll definitely be consulting.
Do you want to say anything else, Belinda?
No, that's fine. Thank you. I'll look forward to it.
So next on the list is Councillor Rezard.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, it's on a similar line, but also what we've already got in place is our Purbeck 200 shuttle that we've got that operates mostly out of Wareham Station, and we've had this as a pilot scheme or something going on for 2 or 3 years now, and I know that Councillor Andrews supports this, and we've had the DCT putting forward this as a more of a permanent one that wouldn't be just the summer for the tourists, but would be all the year round and actually operate from the hub at Wareham. And actually, this is a really good initiative. and we want it to go forward. The PCRP, which is the Purbeck Community Rail Partnership, is actually leading on this, and we are very much wanting to connect up with the Swanage Railway, the Blue Pool and the RSPB on this, and to make it wider for community in Purbeck, and that connect up with the local public transport, which is more bus and first bus. So it is really working quite well, and we just need to continue it and have funding for it. So I hope that we get a chunk of money for that. So thank you very much. I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As there wasn't a question, I'll just take that as a comment. And yes, we recognise the importance of those routes around that area. So next on the list is Councillor Jesperson, I believe.
Yes, thank you very much. Councillor Sherry Jesperson, Hillforts and Upper Tarrants Ward. I'm aware that this is, as it were, a preliminary paper, and that there is a business case to come later. And I'd just like to make a couple of comments that I hope will feed into that business case. The approach that this paper is suggesting, which is the approach that governments and local government always end up taking, is that we would direct the little bit of funding that we have to those larger towns that already have some good public transport, to make that public transport even better. That's the way you get the most bang for your buck. I understand that. And you're also suggesting that for those areas where there is little or no public transport, the town and parish councils will be asked if they can contribute towards funding the transport in areas where there is none. Effectively, I'm asking them to pay twice, because every resident pays the same level of council tax. So my first issue with all of this is that strikes me as unfair, that we are expecting town and parish councils to contribute in the areas where there's very poor transport and not in the areas where there's good transport already. Moreover, there are some smaller parish councils that represent very, very small communities. And even if they were to double their precept, they would still have very, very small amounts of money to put into this community transport pot. So I think we need to think about the very small communities that are not going to be in a position to contribute financially towards community transport. We talk about meeting need when we're designing any other service. If we're talking about who needs affordable housing, who needs support from adults or services, we always start with where is the need greatest, and then make our plans from there outwards. When we're talking about community transport, we don't start with where the need is greatest. If we did, we would start with those small rural communities that have no transport, and we would direct our funding there. But in fact, we do the opposite of that. We start with where there is already good transport and make that better. It seems to me that we have to see if we can turn that model round now and start thinking about where is the community transport most needed, where have they got nothing at all and no possibility of funding it themselves. So my question is, that was more of a statement, but my question is, when you come to write the business case, the business model for community transport, could you consider how you're going to fund those communities that cannot possibly fund community transport for themselves, where the need for community transport is surely greatest, the small rural communities? Because if we don't, what we're doing is we're condemning those communities to rural isolation, but also we're condemning them to continued reliance on car transport, which is absolutely not, as the leader has just said, been outlining our council priorities. That's not in line with the council priorities. So could I ask you to try and flip it on its head and look at it where the need is most? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jesperson. Just to go back, the purpose of the paper that seeks strategic endorsement, not approval of specific service and changes or budgets in this paper. So the paper is there just to start up the process so that it can build a business case. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I have areas in the north of the county that do not get a bus service at all, very small hamlets and villages. So yes, we will take that into consideration while we're doing the business case. And I'm sure the consultation will take that into account. So thank you very much for your comments. But like I said, it will enable us to, this paper will enable us to proceed on a full business case for July 2026. Keep options open while providing a clear direction of travel, forgive the pun.
Councillor Jesperson, did you have a supplementary?
No, that's absolutely fine. And thank you very much for that response.
So Councillor Brenton.
Thank you, Chair, or Leader. My question actually echoes Councillor Jesperson's, in that I do agree that we should be thinking in terms of where the need is rather than the easy application of a bus service. What is easy might be handy, but it doesn't help the people who are most in need. And I would definitely ask as a question, when we talk about the business case, is there a proposal as to how it should be formed? Because I really do believe that a working group involving the more rural councillors and those small parish and town councils should be involved, not just when a survey is put together, but actually to discuss as a working group before the survey is produced. Because otherwise I can see this lovely ambitious plan could end up being nodded to in the future, but not actually not actually making any impact. And we don't need another set of policies that sits on the shelf. So I was just wondering if there was any details about how a working group or responses from the parish and town councils could be incorporated early.
Thank you, Councillor Brenton. No, we haven't worked out any of those details yet, but it's the current transport model is fragile and reactive, especially in rural areas, and we do understand that we can't always reach all of those people, but we will try our best. And when the consultation takes place, we'll make sure that everybody's involved. That's all I can say at the moment, because this is purely a paper to get the ball rolling on some community and public transport that we currently haven't got.
Councillor Brenton, do you want to come back on that?
Which is my fear, that this may start the ball rolling, but that ball could sit on the shelf for an awfully long time before it starts rolling. So I'm not totally convinced that this is going to work, but I give it as much support as I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brenton. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Alex. For me, this is actually a really useful discussion because it reminds us that communities are at the heart of everything that we do. And I know that our increasing focus over the next few months is not just about how one individual area of the council addresses issues within communities, but how as a council as a whole we do so. So we have our age-friendly communities programme, we're going to have our active travel, we're going to have a whole load of other areas, all of which will work together. And that is really what I believe this consultation is about. This is part of the process whereby we all come together to provide the best solutions, not all of which will be provided by Dorset Council, but we find the best solutions and the best providers that work within each individual community. So Weymouth is going to be completely different from Sherborne, and we need to accept that and work with that. And that's why I'm behind this paper, because it will reflect, I think, that ambition that we all have.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Robinson. Anybody else? Don't see any more hands online. So the recommendations are as set out in the paper. Does any member of the Cabinet disagree with those recommendations? No, in which case the recommendations are approved. Thank you. So we're on to the, I guess it's the big item tonight. So it's the budget and medium-term financial plan, and it's going to be presented by Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. Yes, this is a big report. It's quite a chunk of this report explains the background into government funding and the impact it has on our council tax. And so I'll start with that. We're a rural county, but the government doesn't seem to believe us. We have a very aged population, the most aged population in the country, and the government don't seem to take that into account. We've discussed already the transport links that are inadequate in some parts of our county. And as we've heard and seen in the previous paper, we get less than many of our surrounding neighbours in terms of government support for transport. We have a seasonal economy that also has a big impact on the number and types of jobs that are around, and it inevitably leads to an exodus of young people from our county. The government don't seem to get any of this. What they have done, to their credit, is given us a government settlement over a number of years, which is helpful. Sadly, within that settlement, over 3 years, we lose £6 million, which is not helpful. Across the south and the southwest, funds are being reallocated because of national policy to Labour heartlands. Go figure. Business rates are down 15% because of the new way of working them out for our county. And that's the challenge and the backdrop to everything within this paper. We have put forward proposals and recommendations for a 4.99% increase in council tax. I'm disappointed to be putting that in front of everybody, and I know the impact it will have on many of our residents, but we have absolutely no choice because of the way funding is allocated, because of the changes that the government have made to funding formulas that penalise our county, and because of the government's policies and own policies. The upshot is more and more reliance on council tax as our major and soon-to-be sole form of income. And it's really disappointing we're in that place. I find it more than political, I find it dishonest. And the way the government explains this council has got more money to spend in what it calls core spending power is equally dishonest. £25.9 million extra, they boast, we have to spend for our residents, of which £24.1 million is the assumption that we raise council tax to 4.99%. That's misleading. It's bordering on absolute dishonesty, and it's unfair on Dorset. For me, it's a government form of gaslighting the residents of Dorset, and I call it out. I'll move to the paper itself as we get into the figures, and I'll quote from it, and my thanks to our finance team. So as the paper's outline, our finance director has written, this council's approach to balancing its budget involves a combination of efficiency savings, transformation initiatives, and prudent management of reserves, all underpinned by robust governance and risk management frameworks. I would add that the governance includes strict spend controls that are currently in place and will continue. So my thanks to the finance team. And as you'll see in a report, it's unusual to see a finance paper that has the word surprise in it. It says there are no surprises for Dorset in the settlement because we accurately predicted and forecast what we were going to get. That's absolute tribute to our finance teams and other councils and neighbouring councils who look on with envy at the expert insight and guidance that our finance team have given us. We are not running around in a blind panic trying to work out where we're going to fill huge gaps now because of our finance team. So my thanks to them and their excellent performance. Over the past few months, we have engaged our public with a budget simulator that's given people a chance to say where their priorities lie, and no surprise, and especially in the current environment, highways is high up there. We've had 2 scrutiny committees who've gone through in great detail the whole of our spending plans, and we've had 3 opportunities, budget cafes as we call them, to give councillors themselves the opportunity to ask questions to understand the background to our budget. Of those scrutinies, the 2 scrutiny meetings, we've had a response to recommendations put forward that are included in these papers, and my thanks to all who attended and all those who asked such good questions. During the two scrutiny committees, corporate directors were able to assure the committee that they were confident they would deliver savings and manage risk appropriately. So on all sides, it was good work from scrutiny. I don't want to lose sight, though, of this is not just spending on our services. This is also spending on our capital budget, which includes where we build and where we improve our infrastructure. So I'll just highlight a couple of areas. Waste, we're putting £18 million into a new recycling centre at Blandford. On roads, after 10 years of our highest strategic risk, we are finally getting down to Diners Hollow and fixing an ongoing problem. In coastal terms, at Lyme Regis, at West Bay and at Swanage, we're making improvements to coastal protection systems. In terms of helping our residents and also saving ourselves money, we are building a really good reablement centre in Bridport that I think is going to be a sign of things to come. And in terms of jobs and economy, we have very ambitious plans in Weymouth and Portland that we've just discussed many times. So £350 million we're spending across the next 5 years on our capital programme, and that's really exciting and really bold and ambitious. £482 million we are going to spend on our services. We're investing in Dorset. We're investing in Dorset's residents, businesses and visitors. So I'm absolutely delighted with the performance of our teams over the course of this year and looking forward to next year. I'm really proud of these spending plans and I hope it's something we can all get behind. And I move the recommendations as set out in the papers 1 to 13. There is a rogue recommendation in there, number 14, which we can ignore. So I'm happy to move there, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. We have, before I go to the second, we have obviously all the portfolio holders in the room, and we have, I believe, all the exec directors online who are willing to answer questions, obviously. We have gone through scrutiny, as Councillor Clifford has mentioned, and the appendix attached to these papers addresses the concerns raised there. So I will go to Councillor Robinson to second, and then invite him and Councillor Sutton and any other cabinet members who wish to comment on how the budget specifically affects their area of responsibility.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'm happy to second and support this paper. Before I say too much, I just wanted to reinforce something that Simon said earlier about the quality of the staff teams that we employ. Never more so than at the moment. The challenges that Dorset Council employees have come up against over the last weekend or so have been immeasurable. The floods, the road frustrations, all the work that's been going on, I think as, not just as Cabinet, but I think as everybody, every councillor would want to thank everybody that's been involved, whether behind the scenes or up to their armpits in water. I think our thanks go to everybody. I particularly obviously would like to thank the adult social care teams who, even from last Friday, were supporting 200 vulnerable people in Portland against the prospect of being cut off and possibly powerless. They worked through the night to support vulnerable people, elderly people, and I know that is reflected across all portfolios. So I'd just like to recognise and thank them for that. Moving to the budget, as Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, I'm aware that a considerable percentage of this budget will go towards supporting older people, vulnerable adults, children and those with housing needs. And it reflects the scale of demand in a county with one of the oldest populations in the country and its diversity, including significant rural delivery challenges. It also reflects our passion, communities for all. Whilst others tonight will talk about infrastructure, and that's important, I want to talk about the people that we support, the people who are at the heart of tonight's decision on the budget. And within adult social care, to bring this into focus, we support 10,000 new people each year to assess need. We have 19,000 phone calls. At the moment, we have 4,456 residents who receive a commission service. 2,232 people are being supported to live independently in their own homes. And 1,358 people receive care in residential and nursing settings. That is a remarkable remarkable achievement, not just operationally, but the fact that we bring quality of life to people who otherwise would feel they had nothing. We bring choice and opportunity. These are some of the most vulnerable members of our community. We ensure their safety, their dignity, and their independence. It's not just a statutory duty, but it's a moral responsibility that as councillors, we will continue to uphold. But also, moving on from clients, across Dorset Council area, we employ around 11,500 people in social care. This compares with about 7,000 people in healthcare and about 8,700 in agriculture. And this makes social care the single largest employment sector in Dorset. And Dorset Council is in turn the biggest employer in the county. This forms one of the key pillars of Dorset's entire economy and strategy for community well-being. So in this budget, adult social care will contribute £130 million directly back into the Dorset economy through wages, provider payments, local supply chains and commission services. It sustains urban and rural working staff, livelihoods and families. It sustains local care providers and supports small businesses and local economies as a consequence, whilst ensuring that vulnerable residents receive stable and familiar support. So for all of these reasons and many more, I'm very happy to second this budget and move on to the next stage.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Very comprehensive. Councillor Sutton, do you wish to say so?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Claire Sutton, Cabinet Member, Children's Services, Education and Skills, and a ward member for Broadwell and Wyke in Weymouth. So it's always difficult, isn't it? Year in, year out. I'd like to acknowledge that there's a small increase in the allocation to children's services, a small percentage increase, which reflects an increased need of some of our most vulnerable children. Now, obviously, children's services doesn't touch the lives of every single one of our residents, but for those whose lives it does touch, it can be very, very significant. So there's particular focus on increasing investment in the fostering and kinship service. Obviously, when children need to come into our care, they are so much better off, so much happier, so much more stable if they're in fostering or kinship care. And it is a more cost-effective way to look after those children as well. And the ways we're proposing to do this is increasing support staff and increasing allowances for foster carers. Finally, I'd just like to note, very pleased that we've got continued funding for voluntary and community sector organisations, including the Youth Fund and 600,000 shared across our 6 local alliance groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Any other Cabinet members want to reflect on how it affects their portfolio, or we just move on to questions? Okay, so we have, as I said earlier, Cabinet members in the room, Exec Directors online and in the room. Any questions? Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. I share Councillor Clifford's comments about this government. It's almost criminal the way they're making everybody put up the council tax by 4.99%. Yet they said they weren't going to put up taxes, so they're making it happen by the back door. Thank you for the work, and I'd like to say thank you to all those who have worked on this report and the finance. It really is appreciated. But part of the executive summary mentions that adult services are going up by a massive 29 million. Are we able to plan or predict for the future with anticipated numbers? Otherwise, we may not be able to cope with the increase. It's simply unsustainable. I also note with concern that paragraph 6.9 of this report mentions that reprioritising services to cope with the increased financial challenge. I'm concerned that these services might be ceased due to the lack of government funding.
Councillor Shepherd, you take that first.
Yes, so the answer to the question about can we cope with ever increasing demand in adults is we have to. It's a statutory service and that's what we're here for, and we're pleased to. It's not just a demand, it's something we actually will do. We have rebased with significant extra funding into our adult services. I have to say that in terms of services and where you think costs will increase, adults teams and are led by a director have done a fantastic job in looking after more people, but actually bringing the costs down. So they have done a superb job in terms of the cases against the cost. However, eventually, the government are going to have to step in. We are expecting a white paper in the new year, later this year, that will bring some change and some determination about what happens in the future. But you're right to raise these issues. It's at some stage, councils are going to fall over. We're way off that yet, but we have to be aware that is a risk. You'll notice in the papers, we do have our current risk and our future risk as high as it has been for 3 years now, and I don't see that changing too soon.
Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Fry. You made a reference to something in children's services, but I didn't catch what the reference was. Could you repeat it, please, so I can answer?
There was actually no reference to children's services, but I am aware that the costs are going up there in both children and adult services. At no stage do I ever doubt the quality of the service they're getting. My point is that the level and the rate of these demand is going up is almost unsustainable with current funding. Something's got to happen or something's going to break.
Yeah, thank you, Les. Just a few comments about the actions we're taking in children's to manage demand. So one quite significant one is capital investment in specialist school provision. So that's in the SEND arena, and of course the other greatest challenge, and certainly the greatest budgetary challenge, is children in care. And so obviously increasingly trying to shift kids into foster placements and kinship carers, and we're investing more money in special guardianships. And we've got 20 special guardianship assessments going on right now, which is obviously great for kids, great for the budget. In terms of residential in-house, we opened one new residential in-house setting this year, and we've got two proposed in the budget for the financial year that we're looking to. And also not in the budget, there'll be plans going to the senior leadership team soon about opening even more in-house children's homes, and also some homes commissioned in the independent sector for providers providing exclusively for kids in Dorset and based in Dorset. So there's a number of things we're trying to do, and we're working on it. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Robertson first, then Councillor Clifford.
You raise a very good point. The key thing is that we're very aware of what the future is, but it's not something that threatens the council budget. It's something that threatens the country. As a country, we have an ageing demographic. It's an issue that is very live for every care provider in the country as costs go up. And there's less and less money in the economy. Capital depletions are increasing. What we are doing by way of mitigating is that we're trying to stop people needing such expensive care so early. So we have initiated a number of, I'm not going to say exciting, although actually I'm really quite keen on them, but some really new projects like our prevent teams that started off this year that actually help people identify in early and midlife what they can do to avoid disability in later life. And that way we are trying to move to a society that doesn't need our services in the future as much as the current one is. Now, is this a vision or is this a reality? It's a little bit of both. What we are seeing, that the early indications are that we're actually, although our caseload is increasing, the number of expensive critical need is actually reducing because of the effectiveness of some of our programs. So there is hope that actually we are going to be able to lead the way for the country in how we work with an ageing demographic, but it is still a very real threat. It is a very real issue, but it's also a very real opportunity to work differently, to help people stay healthier for longer, rather than assume that there is always going to be something at the end.
Councillor Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. So just a quick update. So where I was talking about adult costs, I refer people to tables 15.6 and 15.7, which shows the numbers of increase and the cost base that's measured against. What I would say is that, and one of the things that no council has done very successfully is actually managed to educate the public and our council taxpayers that they're paying for social care. They're not paying for a road being fixed or a street light or a library. It's 2/3 of our funds go for social care. It's why we get so many questions on it, quite rightly. And it's one of the challenges we have is really let people understand that just because they don't see something doesn't mean to say there's a huge amount of work going on.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Clifford. I did the sums last year, and as you say, 70% or so of our budget is social care. And when you work out 82%, I think, of the budget for last year was council tax, that works out about 55p in every pound that Dorset residents pay goes on social care in some fashion. So, Councillor Fry, do you wish to say anything else?
No, I think you've summed it up. You know, I've listened to all the comments here. I'm concerned, but I think you've summed it up very nicely, Leader, that a lot of our money's going on adult social care. And we can't sustain that in the future unless something significantly changes with the budgets and the funding. Otherwise, we will just run out of money.
Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Parry?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. I think it's just the reality of the world that whenever you undertake a capital project, a building project, it invariably 9 times out of 10 either runs over time and or over budget. What I would have liked to have heard from the portfolio holders from particularly the Children's Directorate, who did place great emphasis in part of their revenue solution was the rolling out of capital projects to build capacity. What is plan B if there are delays?
I can't speak to the individual projects because obviously I don't know which ones are going to be delayed. In terms of plan B, I suppose it's the same as it is within any department. When there are delays, you just have to find a way. So I haven't got any kind of magic wand. I mean, if, for example, we looked at creating special school places or inclusion hubs in mainstream, I mean, we've got a lot of the money nailed down. And I suppose we've got a track record by now. That's not going to give you a huge degree of reassurance, but I think that's the best I can probably do at this juncture.
Councillor Clifford wants to speak first.
Yeah, so if I could just add to that. So I know the Chief Executive has echoed your concerns and has tasked one of our corporate directors to sit on capital spending and actually squeeze it to make sure that we are getting value for money. We are reviewing every single capital bid, and a lot of bids are no longer progressing because they're not seen to deliver enough value for money. And I think that's helps you that there's some efficiency and overview that's been brought in over the past few months.
Thank you. That's certainly welcome news. In the event of another multi-million-pound overspend in, say, for example, the Children's Directorate or the Adults Directorate, is the expectation from the portfolio holders to go down the corridor and see their counterparts in the Place Directorates and tell them once again to tighten their belts? It's rather felt like they've stopped tightening their belts and they've rather more had to put on a straitjacket in the last financial year. And I think we've got to the point now where there is just no more give in the Place Directorates. It's going to have to come back to the People Directorates to sort out their problems in financial responsibility. Is that a fair comment?
Do I need to keep introducing myself? I'm Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. I take your point. I think I would say hats off to the Place Directorate, who have done more than just tighten their belts. They've made investments in areas that are paying off. So they have brought in a significant saving through changing streetlights. As for instance, we're paying far less in energy costs for streetlights than we were. It's not just that they have to put a tin hat on. They find ways to increase income. They find ways to make savings that are suitable. And the leader introduced at the very beginning of the meeting the climate change savings on our utility and energy bills that are very significant. But there is no doubt that social care costs and costs will increase. And any council, and we're no different from anyone else, has to find ways to deliver a balanced budget, which is what we're doing here. It will be tough and it will be challenging. The targets that are set across all our directorates are very difficult for them to achieve. And if there are overspends, then we will have to find a way around them. The point of last resort is our reserves, which we are currently at a decent level, but we do not want to be seen to be dipping into those unless we absolutely have to. But yes, all non-statutory services will have to look at themselves in order for us to deliver statutory services.
Okay, on that basis, I'll just refer back to something he mentioned to me some time ago, actually, which was, whilst we have statutory services, the definition of what the delivery of that statutory services is for interpretation. Where would you perhaps see yourself going if you were faced with such a dilemma as having to redesign a statutory service?
I think we're in the world of the hypothetical. So all I would say is a statutory services has to be delivered. It does not have to be delivered by this council. So there are all sorts of options that are available for us to discuss. And you've just seen, although it's not a statutory service for us to have a bus and community travel initiative, it's something that if we all work together, there are some ways of delivering something that will be different, ambitious and exciting and make a difference to people's lives without us having to spend huge amounts of money. However, your point is, are we looking after every penny? Yes, we are. Can we do better? I'm sure we can. And that's why we're moving on through various initiatives in order to try to do just that.
So we'll go to Councillor Ezard and then Councillor Northam.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I'd just like to mention that it's really a very difficult budget, and I would like to say that the support for family hubs, which helps in the prevention of difficulties for families and local places, has been really something warmly received, especially in my area where we've had the local voluntary sector that's taken on a family hub and has been doing very well with it. So I think that it's very important that we do support these in the future, and it does prevent a lot of problems for families when they know everything's in one place. And also this is all about prevention, and also we're talking about actually just all the other things that can happen in adult social care, that are the initiatives with the day opportunities that have had a big review that's taken 2 years to come to almost fruition. And I think that is something that's coming to the overview committee on Monday. And I think that is a really good move that has had a lot of detail work put in. And I would say that the staff have worked extremely hard to getting that right, and with the cabinet member, Steve Robinson. So thank you very much. And I think that this will go forward. And it's all about, as we said, about prevention and helping people before they get really desperate for things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ezard. I don't believe there was a question there, so we'll move on to Councillor Northam.
Thank you very much. I find the whole budget business extremely complex, but I have found this year easier to understand. So I thank the various teams for the various opportunities to get greater understanding. The budget calculator was an interesting online tool, which I think showed people where the dominant spend was and the lack of real opportunity to do something without seriously cutting stuff back and affecting services. So that I think was really good. I hope we repeat. I would like to get some assurance that we'll repeat something like that next year, because I think it was a very good initiative. So that's one question. And I think what I note is that the children's services has been, over the years, has been very proactive in early intervention, and has led a lot of councils in the country in this respect. And it's led to huge confidence in the rollout of the family hubs. And I support exactly what was just said about family hubs. So my second question is there any way to accelerate the family hubs? Because some of them are taking a little bit of a long time to come forward. And that's probably it. Oh, except that perhaps there's a way also, and I hear it slightly in what Steve is saying, that the adult social services can also look at the early intervention, and you mentioned it slightly, to prevent things getting to the expensive stage. So it's this proactive activity that I really applaud, and I hope we see more of it. Thank you.
So I'll take the first question, which was the budget simulator. Yes, it was very useful and we got quite a decent engagement. It does show how difficult things are. I think looking forward to next year, I think, yes, we will be using it. I think there's an opportunity to create more bands, essentially. So there wasn't, for example, a specific budget item for climate type stuff, environment. And so I think it can be expanded on. It still be just as difficult, I suspect, to balance the budget. So who wants to take the next bit? Councillor Clifford.
Yeah, one of the interesting findings about the budget simulator is people's willingness to pay more council tax, which I think probably doesn't quite reflect real world. So I think it may be there are some interested parties in there. Thank you for the question. In terms of children's and prevention, let's not forget that our children's services are outstanding in Ofsted, and we are a national sector leader. So people partner with us to find out what we do so they can copy. We help shape statutory services through being involved in various schemes, such as one that's called Pathfinder and another called Trailblaze. So we're in some really good places. And I think, I'm not sure if Cabinet Member for Children wants to make any other comment on that, but just before I move on, I would say I did touch on capital programme and our reablement centre at Bridport. This is absolutely front and centre to what we're doing in terms of improving adult social care and trying to help people make transitions easier. And again, I'll hand over to the two Cabinet members if they want to add more.
Yeah, Councillor Claire Sutton, Cabinet Member Children's Services, Education and Skills. Just a very quick word. So as I'm sure you're aware, the main Weymouth Children's Hub is due to open within the next few months, and Portland as well. In terms of accelerating the programme overall, either we can go to Executive Director Paul Dempsey online, or we can get back to the councillor outside the chamber, whichever the chair would prefer.
Mr. Dempsey, do you want to respond to that? Are you available?
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, Paul Dempsey, Executive Director for Children's Services. We have a Family Hub programme to deliver 11 family hubs, full family hubs, meeting the government's criteria to deliver all the full services. 8 of them are open. We have 3 further hubs which will be open shortly. Councillor Sutton just referred to 2 of those. We're going as quickly as we can, but there will be in the next few months, those 3 hubs will be opening. We receive capital funding for that programme as well as revenue funding. We have a 3-year funding settlement of 2.3 million from the government to fund our family hubs, and we'll be distributing that amongst the hubs shortly, and some of that money is for our capital works. In addition to the 11 full family hub sites, there are a greater number of community network points which we are looking to expand as well. So if further opportunities to open more community network points or family hubs open up to us, then we are continually looking at those. But family hubs have been really successful. I echo what Councillor Ezard said. Thank you very much, Councillor Ezard. Been really successful, delivering really good services to our children and families, and that is part of our prevention and partnership work. We've got all sorts of different agencies delivering services from those hubs, and we do know that we are working with fewer children in need, fewer children at child protection level, and fewer at targeted early help, because we're supporting them with our early support services, including our family hubs.
Thank you, Mr. Dempsey. Steve Robinson.
I think this all comes together really well in the ambition we have to work across directorates. So in adult social care, we're also happy to support the development of family hubs in some of the day opportunities, things that are going on, not to disbenefit communities that already have them. So we're not going through a process of mergers. What we are trying to do is increase effectiveness within communities. Within adult social care, we have, if you watch QI, you'll be aware that Sandy Toksvig has her QI elves that speak into her ear, where it can give her, to feed her answers to questions. I have my adult social care elves speaking at the moment. Our prevention services over the last few years now see us managing 85% of all of our new contracts not progressing into long-term care. That is a phenomenal achievement. 85% of the people that have come to us do not end up needing long-term care. That is a phenomenal achievement. The work that we're doing with the NHS to manage one of the biggest drives to ensure that many more people each year go home after reablement services rather than go into long-term care. We're also working along with Children's to Birth to Settle Adult Hope programme to see us proactively manage our children's needs from age 14. So we have a good idea of what projected need is going to be. By comparison with what other areas are doing, the elves tell me, sorry, John, the elves tell me that permanent admissions to care homes for people aged 65 plus for Dorset, even that given our demographic, remain below the national rate at 493.4 per 100,000, compared with 566 nationally. Only 3.31% of older adults in Dorset receive long-term care, compared with 5.25% nationally, which is a remarkable achievement. We have a lot of data and we're using it effectively to work not just with budgets, but to give people quality of life as they age.
Thank you. And I'm trying to work out who's Elrond and Galadriel and all those sort of people. Councillor Northam, do you wish to respond? No, you don't. I don't see anybody else who wants to comment in line. So obviously there's 13 recommendations. This will be coming back. We have full council. These are recommendations that this paper is carried forward to full council when all 82 members have the opportunity to vote on it and no doubt speak on it in further. So can we take the, does any member of the cabinet disagree with the 13 recommendations as set out? No, in which case, in the absence of any dissent, we'll pass that and we'll see you all on the 10th of February to take it further. So the next item is the Q3 quarter financial outturn type thing, which is Councillor Clifford, sorry.
Yes, sorry, I'll take up a lot of your time tonight. Councillor Simon Cliff, Cabinet Member for Finance. So this is the financial picture as at the end of the third quarter of the financial year, and the final report is yet to come to show our finishing position. So we're showing an improved financial picture, which is good to see. My thanks to directors and teams across the board, all directorates who've worked so hard to be as effective and as efficient as possible. We're on track to end with a relatively small overspend of £4 million, which is just a touch over 1% of the budget, which is in line with budgets delivered over the past few years. That is despite strong demand, as we discussed already, on adults and children's services, particularly in the second and third quarters. And by demand, it sounds very technical. What I'm talking about are helping and supporting adults and children who need it. And we're pleased to be able to step in, particularly those individuals and families who are approaching crisis. That's our job, that's what we're here for, and we're proud to be able to do that. There is concern that some of our budget, though, is being duly impacted by a key partner in the NHS and allocations of health support funding, and this is an area that we must watch. There has been a delay to some anticipated savings through our transformation programme. As we heard at scrutiny, this has been a deliberate slowdown to respond to our unions and concerns raised by our staff. This is important work and it's work that we must get right. We've put in place strong controls to reduce waste and question spending, and I refer to 1.14 and 1.15, which outline some of these key areas. Some planned savings have not been achieved. They have been baked into future saving plans that will be achieved in the coming financial years. My thanks in particular, as we've mentioned already, to budget holders in the Police Directorate who've done so much to help the overall corporate financial position. These are not isolated budgets. We all work to a single balanced budget at the end of the year. And finally, I would point to some of my colleagues, particularly in the debt and revenue collection teams. Our debt write-off against £21 million is just £130,000. That's really great work. A similar figure for the collection of council tax and business rates we're currently running, at 83% collected at this stage in the year. Again, my thanks to all involved. And once again, I'd like to thank and praise our finance team and also the cross-party steering groups in transformation and compliance, and to directors and staff for continuing to help support me, help support the council, and help support people in Dorset. I'm happy to move the recommendations as they're written, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford, and I will second that. So we move to any questions? No. Anybody online? No. I feel I should point out that the Place Directorate did make significant savings and reduce the deficit. So thank you to Mr. Britton and his team. If nobody wishes to speak, does anybody disagree with the recommendation as laid out in the paper? No, in which case the report is noted and approved. So we move on to quite a few papers from Councillor Sutton. So the first one is School Admission Arrangements 27 to 28.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll introduce myself one more time because I've got 4 papers in a row. I think probably people can remember for the length of 4 papers. So Councillor Claire Sutton, Cabinet Member, Children's Services, Education and Skills. So the first paper is school admissions. It's the proposed school admission policies for September 27. So we've followed the required consultation process, and in fact only received one consultation response, which was from a parent in Wyke Regis, which has been addressed. And noting in relation to Wyke Regis, which happens to be my ward, the infant school actually reduced intake from 3 to 2 classes 2 years ago. So there's a sort of logical trajectory in this. Otherwise, I think this paper is entirely routine and controversial and uncontroversial, and I'd recommend it to Cabinet for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Councillor Robinson, you got a second?
Very happy to second, Chair.
As Councillor Sutton said, it's a fairly routine paper. It comes every year. Any questions from anybody? Nope. Anybody disagree with the recommendation? No, in which case the recommendation is carried. So that's 1 of 3, 4, sorry. So the next one is the Independent Reviewing Officers report. Again, Councillor Sutton.
Yep, thank you, Chair. In annual report of the Independent Reviewing Officer Service in the Council. This went to Corporate Parenting Board and was scrutinised by the Corporate Parenting Board on the 11th of December. So people have had a look at it. It reviews and monitors the plans for all our children in care, the service does. And the evidence within the report demonstrates that the service continues to develop and supports children to be well cared for. So I'd move the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson, you were seconding again?
Yes, indeed, Chair.
Again, this is an annual report, fairly routine. Anybody wish to comment at all? Anybody disagree with the recommendations? Oh, okay. Who was it, sorry? Oh, okay. Councillor Sompo. Can't see a picture. There you go.
Hiya. Just a quick question for the Cabinet Member. I just wanted to ask about how the Council supports the most vulnerable children, especially those who struggle to communicate, to ensure that their views are heard and that they influence the decisions. I know it's an important area for you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Somper. So obviously supporting the most vulnerable children, I've indicated a number of ways in which we do that in relation to SEND kids, for example, and children in care. I mean, I can provide more detail about that, but I'm not sure if it relates specifically to this paper. So maybe we could take that outside. In terms of speech and language in particular, I'm not sure who's the best officer online to provide more detail on that. Whether that will be probably our Corporate Director for Education, Jen Fennell.
I'm happy to have a response sent if no one's there. It's fine. Sorry, I should have said Councillor Somper from the Beacon Ward.
Okay, yes, Councillor Summer, you'll get a response in due time. I don't see other hands up. Does anybody disagree with the recommendations as laid out in the report, Cabinet? No, in which case we approve that report. So the next one is the LADO annual report 24-25. The LADO is a statutory role held by an officer, I believe. So Councillor Sutton again.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to the previous report, this was scrutinised by the Corporate Parenting Board on the 11th of December. There isn't actually a recommendation, you'll notice. So it's the annual report of the local authority designated officer service in the council 24-25. This service manages allegations against people who work or volunteer with children and young people. I can provide more detail if you want, but it's all in the paper and it has been scrutinised. So I'm not going to recommend the recommendation because there isn't one.
Councillor Biggs, you're seconding.
Yes, I'm very happy to second it. For those members who probably involved in any organisation involved in charity work with children and adults will probably have come in contact with the LADO. Hopefully not too serious, but these things do happen and things slip through the net. And certainly in my dealings in the organisation I've been involved in, I would be very complimentary of them. They are a very professional service and they, they're not there to berate people. They're there to do the best interests for children and to raise standards. So sort of safer recruiting and all that sort of thing is really important. And probably a lot of organisations who struggle with volunteers, etc., really find their advice really useful. So I'm very happy to second this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Biggs. Any questions or comments from anybody online in the room? No. Okay, in which case there is no recommendation, so we're just asked to note it. So it's noted. So item 15, Coombe House Annual Report 2025. Again, Councillor Sutton.
Yeah, so you've seen the report, extremely positive. This went to the shareholder committee on the 1st of December, so that this has also been considered out here, out with this meeting. The recommendation here is to receive. I'll just pick out three elements. So the Ofsted inspection in July resulted in a good with outstanding for personal development. So that's significant improvement over quite a short period of time, and I think all concerned are very proud of that. I personally, in reading the report, I found it very moving and very human. I thought actually the way the voices of children and parents shone through made it a document of some quality, in fact. But on a more sort of hard-headed point of view, about a third of our total independent school placements are actually at Coombe House. And the price of those individual placements is 25% lower than the wider independent market fee. So were those kids in other independent schools as opposed to Coombe House, that would cost us another 2.7 million a year. So some soft stuff and some hard stuff. Thank you.
Councillor Biggs, you're seconding again.
Yes, Richard Biggs, Property Assets and Economic Growth. I would certainly warmly welcome that second it. As you've said, 2.7 million is not to be sniffed at. That's revenue costs. That just imagine where we'd be having to find another 2.7 million. So this is cumulative as it's ongoing, and it's really welcome. There's so many good points in there. A bit about the solar energy they're using, green energy initiatives that are really positive, and of course, obviously the use of the leisure facilities there to the community. Not to say that there's more to do, and certainly in the property side, I think we're all looking at that very closely. But there's some really good positives in there, so I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Anybody wish to comment? Andrew, go on. Mr. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for indulging me on this. You will not be surprised, of course, I welcome this report as the Cabinet member who was instrumental in us acquiring the site originally. I pay tribute to everybody involved in getting the Ofsteds, but I also reflect on the fact that we as a council took and it was collectively across the council at the time, during the restrictions of COVID, took a chance in a belief that we could deliver at scale SEND provision in an area where it hadn't been delivered before in the north of the county, admittedly just over the border into Wiltshire by about 100 metres or something. But we did that, and we did it on the basis of financial exercise as well. But what I would say is that we have, to date, there are 152 pupils on roll who may not have an educational place if we hadn't made that decision those years ago to get this up and running, because the delivery of an SEND provision, and it is worth repeating it, takes years to deliver. And we delivered it in months. And as a council, I know it was done at breakneck speed, and I appreciate it had a bit of a bumpy landing at the start, but it's very, very pleasing to see this sort of report. Well, the question I want to ask, or the assurance I seek, is that this administration is as committed to Coombe House as the previous administration, which does include further utilisation and development of the site, which I still believe offers enormous potential.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. The previous administration, and you in particular as portfolio holder, deserve absolutely massive credit for this, and I actually probably should have said that previously. You may have picked up in other papers that we're conducting an options appraisal at the moment about how to further develop other areas of the site. We're expecting that back by the end of February, at which juncture we may be revisiting the business plan, but we just need all the evidence and everything stacked up and everything properly considered before we make those decisions.
Sorry, Leader, if I may just come back on that. Revisiting the business plan before we make decisions, that doesn't quite have the ring of confidence I was hoping to hear from the portfolio.
My sincere apologies. I said that completely the wrong way around. Obviously, we need the appraisal before we make any consideration on whether we for the next iteration of the business plan, basically. Yeah, so my apologies.
I think what Councillor Sutton's also tried to say is that, there is an opportunity on the site for a lot more other than just what is a successful SEND school, and we are looking at that. We have every intention of sweating the asset, if we want a better word, for the benefit of our residents. Councillor Clifford.
We sometimes get lost in the technical speak that we have of it's a performance report, but what I'd like to do is just read out one of the comments of in the beginning of the report from one of the kids at the school. David: when I passed my first exams ever in English and maths, it made me feel I could achieve anything. I think anyone who had any part to play, Councillor Parry, Councillor Sutton, anyone who had any part to play in that decision should feel proud.
Well said. Anybody else wish to comment? See any hands up online? There is a recommendation that has been through the shareholder committee and it's been come through to cabinet. I don't see any dissent. I'll ask the question. Does anybody disagree with the recommendations? No, in which case the recommendations are approved. And for anybody who hasn't read it, it's well worth reading. It's a nice glossy brochure, well presented, well produced, and the content is amazing. So the next item is me. So this is here because we need to extend the contract for all the printing we do in electoral services, because our current provider is basically moving out of the market, and we need to basically tide ourselves over and also look for another provider. So this is here just to basically make that extension essentially. So the official title is Printing of Electoral Registration and Election Materials Procurement Arrangements. Obviously, the printing of these things, some of it is stuff that happens every year in terms of registering for the electoral, all that sort of stuff. Some of it is related to whether there's an election or not. We haven't got any elections coming up as far as I know, but who knows. So the paper, I'll take the paper as read. I'm not sure who's going to second it. It's going to be Ryan, Councillor Hope. So Councillor Hope, do you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. Nothing really more to add. It's business as usual, really, isn't it? Keeping the process going. So happy to second.
Thank you. Any questions on this paper? It's fairly straightforward. No. So there's two recommendations. Can I take any dissent on those, A and B? No. In which case the recommendations are carried. And so now we're on to Councillor Bartlett's part of the agenda. So the first one is the East Devon Local Plan Consultation.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Cabinet Member for Planning, Emergency Planning and Ward Member for Westminster. And as you said, this is a paper concerning the East Devon Local Plan Consultation. And I've got nothing really other than a reasoned recommendation to ensure that the Council's views are taken into account in preparing the East Devon Local Plan and maintain appropriate cooperation during the production of both Council's local plans. So I'd just like to move the recommendations in the report as laid out, and I believe Councillor Wilson is going to second. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson, you a second?
Yep. Ben Wilson, South East Purbeck. Very happy to second and welcome the focus on joint working between East Devon and Dorset.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any comments? No, it's fairly straightforward. So the recommendation is that we we note the response to be agreed. So the response hasn't been sent yet? No.
We're dealing with this retrospectively, Chairman, because we had to give the response due to the timeframes that East Devon were working to. Thank you.
That's what I thought. So yeah. So we're retrospectively approving, I hope. So anybody disagree with the fact that we responded and what we said? No. Okay, in which case we've approved it. Does the same apply to the New Forest National Park Local Plan, which is the next paper?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, agenda item 18, New Forest National Park Local Plan response. Dorset Council, we've got a responsibility and duty to engage with our neighbouring authorities to establish where future housing will be developed. Due to the high housing numbers set by government for Dorset Council area, it presently would appear to be unlikely that we can accommodate the delivery of neighbouring authorities' housing requirement. And I move the recommendations as laid out in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ryan-Hope's going to second. Come to this.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Happy to second and nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. Any questions? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Leader. If I could just ask the Cabinet Member regarding 4.10 of the report, page 491, with regarding this 13.8 kilometre radius, which of course does impact the Dorset Council area significantly, my West Parley ward, in fact, indeed your own Wimborne ward, I imagine falls pretty close to that, if not inside it. I am aware that we've seen things like planning fees being attributed to this for our residents. Are we effectively collecting money on behalf of New Forest Council and that these funds are not spent in the area? And are we as Dorset Council incurring any expenditure as a result that we can't reclaim?
Just getting confirmation. Yeah. Sorry. It's a bit complicated. Just to get the confirmation, collecting the money on behalf of Natural England due to the mitigations that's needed to protect the special environment that is the New Forest. Yeah. Just ask the officer to add to that.
Yeah, apologies. Mike Garrity, Corporate Director for Planning. It's as Councillor Bartlett says, that there is an imperative for us to actually ensure that any development that we approve in Dorset sufficiently mitigates any impact on internationally protected habitats. The area that is affected in New Forest, we have a responsibility to ensure that we're mitigating, otherwise we wouldn't be able to actually approve those developments. So New Forest District Council will be responsible for ensuring that mitigation is carried out and implemented, and we ensure that our contributions relative to the affected area go to New Forest so that they can then ensure that the mitigation is carried out and satisfy natural England in the process. So that the principle applies where it's not based on administrative boundaries as such, it's about the impact on the habitat and ensuring that the development, wherever it happens to happen within that catchment, is doing the necessary mitigation. So it is a charge on housing development because they have to pay towards that mitigation in the same way that they would for any of the sites that are within Dorset as well.
If I may, thank you, Leader. Would I be right in presuming then that we are not passing on a charge for our own administrative process of this to the New Forest Council, and in effect, we are subsidising them in the revenue they are receiving?
There's an interesting question. I must admit I wasn't anticipating that one. I think we take this community infrastructure levy that we use for mitigation includes an element which is an administrative charge effectively. So it covers the cost of administering the fund. So there is an element of all community infrastructure levies that covers that cost. So in effect, our team isn't actually taking on an additional burden that we're paying for as a council. The administrative levy would cover that.
Okay, that was a very good question. Anybody else? Set the bar quite high now. No, I don't see anybody online. So the recommendation is that we agree our response. So anybody disagree with that? No, in which case we'll approve that as well. So the next one is item is 18, I look at my 19, Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan. So this has been quite a project, and Councillor David Northam is in the room, who led on it as a Weymouth Town Councillor. So I'm sure he can answer any questions as well, if necessary, or ask them. Councillor Bartlett, you're going to introduce it again.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm still Councillor Shane Bartlett and still Cabinet Member for Planning, Emergency Planning and Board Member for Winchester. The Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan for decision tonight. The recommendation to approve the Weymouth Neighbourhood Plan as laid out in the report. And can I take this opportunity to thank the Weymouth Town Council and Neighbourhood Plan Group and Dorset Council officers for their assistance and the hard work that's gone into bring this plan ready for adoption tonight, hopefully. Thank you.
And I will second, as quite a few of my colleagues in the room aren't allowed to, or we think they're allowed to, so I will. And congratulate David Northam, Councillor Northam, on getting it through the referendum. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Northam, do you want to make a statement or anything? Fine. Councillor Clifford?
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. I'd just like to applaud Councillor Northam for living and breathing this plan for probably more years than he ever expected. I think the team of councillors at Weymouth Town Council who supported him did excellent work. There's always a question mark when you have a referendum. I mean, how you can have a referendum for something that on paper sounds so boring and try to get people out to vote for it. It explains why there's low take up, but you got the positive response that you wanted, and my absolute admiration for you continuing through it on a subject with some barbs that were thrown your way, but you did exceptionally well. So my congratulations to you.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. It's good to see our biggest populations into having it all. I'm preempting our approval, but I suspect we will. Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chairman. My wife says I've got the memory of a fruit fly, and I'm not sure I actually moved the recommendation as set out in the report, so I'm doing so now. Thank you.
So it was taken as read. Anybody else want to comment? Councillor Northam then.
Thank you. Councillor Northam, Upway and Broadway. You're right that I'd like to thank the previous chairs of the steering group. So Weymouth Town Council delegated the responsibility for producing the neighbourhood plan to a steering group. And in forming that steering group, they insisted that there should be a majority of residents on there and a minority of councillors. And that's the way it ran for 5 years. And the first chair was Lucy Hamilton. The second chair was another lady called Sandy Wilson. And I was the third chair and managed to get it over the line, which I'm very happy with. But the other big feature is that the steering group by the end, we still had most of the members of the steering group that we started with. So this sticking with it, I really want to thank them in this public forum for sticking with it for so long. We actually formed a number of working groups, and we had much wider involvement of groups bringing forward different aspects of the plan which are represented in the different chapters. And I apologise to the planning department on its length. It is long, but at the time we weren't certain where the local plan was going, and the local plan was in danger. The existing local plan was in danger of becoming old and out of date and challengeable. So we put in more than we perhaps needed to, and we may be able to take some out in the future. So I thank very much all those people who voted for this. Last thing I just point out is that most of the funding for the plan came from central government through the locality grants process. I just quote to finish, the examiner's report, which is totally independent, said that the Weymouth neighbourhood plan will make a positive contribution to the development plan for the area because it sits alongside the local plan and should enable the attractive character and appearance of Weymouth to be maintained whilst enabling sustainable development to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Northam. Anybody else want to comment? Can't see anybody online. I think we should just move to it. Let's take a vote this time. So for the show of hands for all those in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done, Councillor Northam and Weymouth Town Council. So the next one is another neighbourhood plan, which is Melbury Abbas and Cann neighbourhood plan. It'll be introduced by Councillor Bartlett, be seconded by Councillor Hope, and I believe Councillor Somper wants to speak on it as well.
Thank you, Chairman. Melbury Abbas Cann neighbourhood development plan. The reasons for recommendations is formally made the Melbury Abbas Cann neighbourhood development plan part of the statutory development plan for the Melbury Abbas and Cann neighbourhood area. In addition to recognising the significant amount of work undertaken by Parish Council and members of the neighbourhood plan group in preparing the plan, to congratulate the council and the group on their success. I can only hold it in high regard that the work that they've done on that and bringing that forward for tonight for hopefully adoption. So I'll move the recommendation as laid out in the report, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan Hope, Cabinet Member for Customer, Culture and Community Engagement. I'm very happy to second this, as alluded to in the last item on the paper. I think sometimes people forget that neighbourhood plans are developed from the community up, that they are not a council document. They come from the grassroots up and influence our decisions here, both in towns and parishes and here at Dorset. So to add my congratulations also to the working group for this neighbourhood plan, and happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Hope, and I think it's a shame that the current government have actually removed the funding, I believe, for neighbourhood plans going forward, which is a shame. So Councillor Somper, who's the local ward member, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please, I agree with you on that. Yes, Councillor Jane Somper, Beacon Ward, where Melbury Abbas and Cann Parish Council sits, and as their ward councillor, I'd like to place on record how much work has gone into getting the neighbourhood plan to this point. It's been quite a few years in the making by parish councillors, present and past, volunteers, residents and officers as well. And it really shows what communities can achieve when they're given the tools and the support to shape their own future. And as you said, that lack of funding now is going to have an impact. The plan isn't just a planning document, it's about protecting what people love about Melbury Abbas and Cann, while giving them a say in how their village grows and thrives. For residents, this is going to make a real difference, and it gives clarity, certainty, and a genuine voice in decision making. And I'm proud to support this and hope that you do too.
Thank you, Councillor Somper. Anybody else wish to comment? No. So the recommendations are approve the report and congratulate the Parish Council. So let's do a show of hands again. All those in favour? That's again unanimous. So well done, Melbury, Abbas and Cann. And that is the last proper agenda item. We have no urgent items and we have no exempt business. So we've managed to do it just under 2 hours. And thank you very much. Have a safe trip home. Hopefully I can't hear any rain, so maybe we'll survive. The next cabinet is in March and we have full council on the 10th of February. So see you all then. Good night.
Thank you.